Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin volatility is at the lowest point that we've seen this year so far, which sends an important signal that we need to pay attention to. And while this is happening, Ethereum is getting much closer to breaking this pattern, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely stick around. First of all, just giving you a quick update here on the weekly Bitcoin chart. And right now, as I said in my last video, the price of Bitcoin is currently forming a giant cup and handle pattern here on the weekly time frame. But obviously, as of right now, this pattern is not yet confirmed, because for this pattern to confirm, we need to see a recovery in the price of Bitcoin back up towards around 30.5k within the next 1 to 2 months or so. And then after that, we would need to see a confirmed breakout above 30,500 with at least a weekly candle close above that level. And then if that happens, that would confirm this giant cup and handle pattern, which will be extremely bullish here on the larger timeframes and likely kickstart a major bull run. But if you want to know more about that, then check out my last video on the channel, because in that video, I went into a little bit more detail about this pattern. But anyway, now taking a look at the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and this chart is zoomed all the way out, taking a look at the Bollinger Band indicator and also the Bollinger Band width indicator, which basically tells us the relative volatility relative to this time frame. Because usually when the volatility in the price of Bitcoin is low, we see a squeeze in the Bollinger Bands, which obviously means the Bollinger Band's width is small, meaning this indicator is dropping to the downside. But on the flip side, when we see an extremely volatile move in the price of Bitcoin, we usually see an expansion in the Bollinger Bands indicator, which means the Bollinger Band's width is obviously increasing. And so once again, when the Bollinger Band's width is low, when it is small, that means we've just seen a time period of very low volatility, relatively speaking. But when we see the Bollinger Band's width indicator all the way up here, that means we've just seen a very volatile move in the price of Bitcoin. And now, as you've probably already noticed by now, this Bollinger Band's width indicator acts kind of like a price oscillator, because you can see here that this indicator usually tops out at around the same area and bottoms out at around the same area, which basically means when this indicator is bottoming out, reaching this area, considering it historically does not stay at these lows very long before shooting back up again, this basically means that a volatile move is just around the corner. We're getting very close to the next extremely volatile move in the price of Bitcoin based on the history of this indicator. And in fact, if you're looking at the past examples of when this indicator reached these sort of levels that we're sitting at right now, first of all, we saw this happen back in around October, November 2018. And obviously that was a signal that flashed just before a significant volatile move in the price of Bitcoin, which was actually around a 50% crash within the next 1 month or so. And if you're looking at the next signal, that happened around March 2019, just before an extremely volatile move in the price of Bitcoin from around 3,000 to 4,000 all the way up towards around 13,000 to 14,000 over the next few months. And now if you're looking at the next example, this happened around July 2020, and what came next was a small volatile move, so not as large as these previous moves, but a volatile move nonetheless, because we ended up seeing a quick move from around $9,000 all the way up towards around $12,000 in just a matter of days. But then if you're looking at the next example, that happened during around October 2020, and obviously what came next after this signal flashed was an extremely volatile move over the next few months that sent the price of Bitcoin from around 11 to 12,000 all the way up towards around $60,000 just a few months later. And if you're looking at the next example, this happened just before the FTX crash, because as you can see here, we saw this low volatility signal flash during late October, early November 2022, which happened just before a crash in the price of Bitcoin from around 21,000 all the way down towards around 15 to 16,000. And once again, right now, this same signal is flashing, this historical low volatility signal, which usually means an extreme extremely volatile move is just around the corner. And now, unfortunately, this signal does not actually tell us whether the next volatile move will be bullish or bearish. For that, we need to watch support and resistance levels in order to really determine the next direction in the next major movement. But one pattern that we could potentially consider based on these previous signals is that, first of all, we usually see these signals on the 4-day time frame come in pairs. And so far, out of each of these previous pairs, we usually end up seeing a larger volatile move on the second signal rather than the first signal. And also what's interesting is we usually end up seeing these signals as trend continuation signals rather than significant reversal signals. Because, for example, if you're taking a look at that 2018 example, we were already in a bear market leading into that signal right there. And so the next volatile movement was bearish. But if you're looking at the second example that we saw in around March 2019, before that signal actually flashed, we had already started to see higher lows and higher highs begin to form here on the 4-day Bitcoin charts. And then after that signal flashed, after we had already started to form higher lows again, after that bear market, we then saw a bullish movement, which essentially continued that bullish trend that was already beginning to form. And if you're looking at the next example during July 2020, once again, we were already trending to the upside, and then we saw that signal, and what came next was a short-term volatile movement to the upsides. And then obviously we stayed within that bullish price structure, forming higher lows and higher highs. Then we saw this next signal during October 2020, and the next volatile move was a bullish signal because, of course, we were in a bullish trend leading up to that signal. And now if you're looking at what we saw during late October, early November last year, of course, that volatile movement was a movement to the downside because at that stage, we were still seeing lower highs and lower lows in the price of Bitcoin here on the 4-day time frame. And so the trend simply continued in that direction with that next volatile movement. But obviously, what we've seen throughout this entire year so far, throughout all of 2023 so far, is a bullish trend here on the larger time frames because we're still seeing higher lows and higher highs in the price of Bitcoin here on the 4-day time frame. And so at least according to the history of this signal and this indicator, this is potentially pointing towards a volatile movement to the upside being more likely than a volatile movement to the downside, considering historically speaking, this has been more of a trend continuation signal rather than a reversal signal. But either way, this is pointing towards an extremely volatile move coming soon, as in potentially at some point within the next few weeks, because remember, this is looking at the much larger time frames. We're not talking about the shorter term movements. We're talking about the moves that last weeks, if not months. But anyway, now taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is still trading in between this support and this resistance. And as for the daily Bitcoin price oscillators, these haven't really changed over the last 1 day, so they're still looking very neutral as of right now, showing very low momentum, at least in the shorter term, which once again is why we're seeing that low volatility signal flash here on the 4-day Bitcoin chart. And so essentially, even though we're seeing very low momentum in the shorter term and mostly choppy sideways price action, remember, this is only likely going to continue for a little longer in the shorter term before we soon see an extremely volatile move at some point within the next few weeks. And now staying on that daily Bitcoin chart, but taking a look at this falling wedge pattern, which is still currently forming with support sitting at around 25.6k and resistance sitting at around 27.3k. And as always, in order to confirm the technical price target for this pattern, we need to see a confirmed breakout well above this resistance. And if that happens, if we confirm a breakout above that level, then that sets up a technical price target at the top of the wedge, which is sitting at around 30,500. And now just taking a look at the shorter term, this is on the 8-hour Bitcoin to US dollar chart. And right now, the price of Bitcoin is still running into this area of support, sitting in between around 26.1k to 26.5k. And as for short-term resistance, we still have this range sitting in between around 27.2k to 27.6k. And so once again, as I've said recently on the channel, just in the shorter term here, we're basically basically in a sideways price range in between this support and this resistance. So at least in terms of the immediate short-term trend, I'm actually leaning very neutral, not overly bullish or overly bearish, just in the imminent short term, mostly expecting some more choppy sideways price action. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart, and right now the price of ETH is bouncing from this area of support, once again sitting in between around 1770 to 1820. And as for the momentum in the shorter term on this daily time frame, right now we're still looking very neutral. For example, in the price oscillators, the RSI is basically chopping around sideways, while the daily Ethereum MACD is currently showing very low momentum to either direction. So basically not much has changed over the last 1 day here on the daily time frame, and something similar can be said about the 6-hour ETH to US dollar chart, because right now the price of ETH is still currently forming this symmetrical triangle pattern in the shorter term, with this level of support currently sitting at around 1815 and this level of resistance currently sitting at around 1890. And if you're looking at the 6-hour Ethereum RSI, this is getting very close to potentially breaking out to the upside, but as of right now, that potential breakout is not yet confirmed. And so once again, at least in the shorter term, we're looking very neutral, not overly bullish or overly bearish. But as I've also said in recent videos here on the channel, if we start to see a confirmed breakout here in the 6-hour Ethereum RSI above this resistance, then that could potentially act as a leading indicator for a breakout in the price action. But obviously, considering that has not yet happened, we still ideally need to wait for a break either below this support or above this resistance with confirmation in order to actually set up the next technical price target for this symmetrical triangle pattern. And now, speaking of the next technical price target for this symmetrical triangle pattern, if we see a confirmed breakout above that resistance, then that sets up a technical price target at around 2130. But on the flip side, if we see a confirmed break below that level of support, then that would set up a technical price target at around 1610. But either way, no matter what direction the price takes here, whether we break bearish, bullish, or simply continue to chop around sideways, you can still make money in crypto by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. Because the video in the top left shows you how to make money no matter what direction the price goes using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.